helping my parents change or heal really could never come about when I was trying to change them, because that's what would make me feel safe. Hey y'all, I am VictorY. I help provide insight to empower, and today I wanted to talk about my relationship with my parents. And it's something that's been really difficult as a child of neglect, having my abandonment wounds be established pretty early on, and having to work through and heal that. And what I've realized so deeply, I mean, today and the last few years, is that the work started with my mom. She's schizophrenic, she has depression, she has a lot of traumas. And looking at her through that lens, through that frame, coming from like, oh shit, I don't feel safe around this person, my inner child doesn't feel safe around this person. And so coming from that wounded place, trying to change her. And what I realized was it wasn't about changing her, because then that triggers her emotional response. Then she feels like something's wrong with her, even if that's not explicitly said. It's intuitively, emotionally triggered in the nervous system. So what helped me to get along better was first establish boundaries and not expect her to change. Say, like, if there were things that she was doing that I didn't like, I mean, at first it was really volatile. At first I like, because I didn't know any better, I would use my anger or silence or isolation as a way of setting boundaries ineffectively. And then it became like, okay, whether this scares me or not, I'm gonna say what I need. And I still may get triggered. And so that went on for like a little bit, a few weeks, maybe a few months. And then very subtle changes started to happen. And it was kind of like the carrot at the end of the stick, where it's like, okay, maybe this person can change. And what really helped was my ability to change, my ability to reframe things, to gain a new perspective. That's very like conceptual, but to ground it, what helped was not waiting for her or my dad to change to feel safe. Speaking up for myself was like a baby step forward for me to feel safe. And the more safe I felt, the more safe they ended up feeling, if that makes sense. It was this like subtle energy thing of like, a feedback loop of being okay with how things turned out. Which, I mean, it's challenging. And even saying that today, there's still good chunks of me that are still wrestling with that. That it still takes so much practice to just sit in the moment and accept everything as it is, because there were some things that I really wish had turned out differently. So speaking to the point of how do we change our parents? How do we feel safer around them? What's worked for me, that I've seen firsthand work and pay off dividends, was allowing who they are now to be, and I just observe. So we have lunches, or we get together for lunch, or somebody makes food, and where before there was a lot of hypervigilance, looking for things to pick up, to kind of attack, to attach meaning to. So I would look for things to hang on to and be like, there's the reason why I can't trust you. And slowly, over the course of weeks and months, exposure therapy here, I would just hang back and observe. Watching them, watching myself, and just prioritizing, not just letting things go, prioritizing my breath, prioritizing processing the moment, and I would allow them to just be who they are right now. Not looking to change them, just being open and curious to who they are now. And I really believe that sent this subtle signal of like, okay, the coast is clear. It's safe to be yourself. I'm not gonna attack you. I'm not gonna blame you. It was heavy lifting with my mom. Her trauma response, what makes her feel safe, is what we often label as narcissism. But you'll see that if I just go out and whether to myself or to others, I say, yeah, my mom's narcissistic, my mom's this and that, my mom's, bipolar or schizophrenic or depressed, then I'm carrying that, and it's sending the signal to her that she needs to stay in that. When I reframe it and I say, okay, my mom has had a fucking horrendous, catastrophic, traumatizing, eventful upbringing, that helps me be or come from a place of more compassion. And compassion being empathy with boundaries, more unconditional love, more acceptance of her growth as a person, and allowing that space for her to grow and to ultimately to change and love me in the way that I need to be loved. Even though I didn't get that when I was a kid, when I felt like I really needed it. If I hang on to that, if I hang on to, you didn't love me the way I needed you to, then that's in the present moment what I'm holding between us. I try to talk to my dad, just to shift gears and hit up both parents. I try to talk to my dad about the way he was addressing my sister, and it's what's very much being talked about men today, about how, women don't want to be fixed. They don't want their issues to be fixed. They just want to feel seen and heard, and like their experience is valid, and to be supported without trying to fix. And I told my dad, okay, the way you handled this one thing with, I have 3 older sisters, so the youngest of my sisters, the way you handle things with her is very much not the way, it's not what she needed in that moment. How do I know? Because she told me. And it took me a few days to process the emotionality of it, because I wanted to just go up to my dad and be like, I need you to stop fucking this shit up. I need you to be there for my sister, goddammit. And I was there for my sister, and I applied what I'm saying here, but I know it's invaluable to my sister. It'll help her heal. It'll help my parents and my sisters heal the relationship. Applying techniques and tools of emotional intelligence. My dad's very, intellectually intelligent, but he comes from that generation of, the man does the man thing and the woman does the woman thing. And if she's got emotions, he's just shut down, find a way to fix. So I was in my room and I overheard my parents and my sister talking, and he was still in that same bullshit of, this is what you need to do. This is what's gonna happen. This is the choice, and we make the choice, and after that, we let it go, and just not at all seeing my sister being in a place of struggling, of needing support, needing emotional support, just being like, it sounds like what you're going through is very difficult. Maybe like putting a hand on her knee, on her arm or something, on her back, just being like, I got you. It sounds like what you're going through is difficult. I see that, I hear you, I got you. Right? Something I saw on Instagram was like, are you looking for support or are you looking for solutions? Even then, I feel like that's a little bit later. First, it's just a matter of like seeing and hearing that person. To bring it back full circle, it wasn't, I heard them have that conversation after I talked to my dad. Frustrating. I processed my frustration because it's my frustration. I was open, let my dad be who he is. And then maybe like a week or so later, they had that conversation again. My sister's like just speaking to her point, like, that's not what I need to hear. You know, just looking for more, you know, emotional validation, wanting to be seen and heard, and just not like, the problem is it is what it is, but women don't want to be seen as the problem. That's what happens when, you know, we as men, or we as the masculine partner, go in to try to immediately resolve that issue. And again, my dad was just still stuck in his ways. And what I realized today on the drive home was that it's not so much that he's still stuck in his ways. What feels more accurate is that this is how dense and deeply embedded the programming is. So what he gets out of being the problem solver is feeling, one, identifying with that, and so having that identity, that part of his identity, brings him a sense of security and value and worth to himself. So even though it may not apply today and it may be a little scary, so wanting to reach for that certainty and hold on to that piece of his identity, even though it may be scary to try new tools and uncomfortable, it's sitting in that discomfort, in that uncertainty, that is the process and act of dissolving, vibrating loose this gunk, this dense energy, this programming. So when I look at him and I send and feel like I allow that space and send that subtle energy between us, it's a lot more like, okay, I see, this is how big it is. This is how big it feels. This, you know, going on 64 years of this being the learned way. It's not about like resolving it. It's about being big enough a person to hold space for that. Yeah. Because like there's the difference between like, if this is the density and I try to like change him, it's like attacking him, it's like trying to deconstruct and decompose the programming. But if I like allow the space for it, instead of tightening up on it, I allow the space, it can slowly start to open up, and he can see for himself that certain things aren't working, and the seeds that I planted about just her, or you know, or my mom or my other sisters wanting to feel seen and heard is the way to go about it. And maybe he feels like, you know, that's just something that he came to on his own, where I've seen firsthand, you know, me wanting to change him, that's me, my ego wanting to take credit for his growth. And if he never acknowledges like, hey, you were right, like this was the correct way, if he never acknowledges that, but he gets it on his own, that's fucking worth it. That's so worth it. I can sit back and be like, bitch, I taught you that. Yeah. But it's not about taking credit for it, right? That's Facebook fights. That's like wanting somebody to see your way, wanting to change someone's mind is so unhealthy. It really is. I've been in Facebook fights. 2016 was hot and heavy. This is the way you're seeing it. You need to see it this way. It's like, what, that just, it's not only clashing, but it's like suppressing somebody else's life experience. And when I personally, when I just hang back, allow the space, allow them, allow their self, their essence, their current beliefs, when I allow them to take up space, and I'm just like, okay, sounds like what you're saying is this. It sounds like this is what you believe. To me, that sounds stressful. That sounds like it's coming from, a place of like suspicion or fear or something like that. Just observing and being open and curious. Being open and curious is so valuable, so needed. Right? When you set the example for somebody else, when you're in that place of genuinely being like just open and curious, I really believe that subconsciously they're picking up on that. And maybe before, because maybe that's how they carried on with their parents, is their parents is telling them what's what, or authority figures is telling them what's what. When my presence can be one of what's going on, like how'd you get there? How'd you get to that conclusion? That's interesting. Suddenly they're not being talked at. It's a conversation. And what I mean by leading by example is that their subconscious is like, okay, this is that's an in real time IRL version of like what it's like for someone to be genuinely curious and open to how I think and how I process. And suddenly there's more room, and because they're not being talked at, or there isn't that cancel culture, there's just a lot more room for light and love and like understanding and compassion to dissolve the hatred, the resentment, the fear. Show somebody they can be wrong and they're still safe and valued and appreciated and loved, and that's a person who is open to change. What's it like with your parents? What's it like, being you? When was the last time you felt seen and felt heard? If you feel like you could stand to benefit from that, book an appointment with me. I am VictorE.com. If you like this video, like it. If you think somebody would, benefit from seeing it, if you like what you saw, like, share, subscribe, the usual. Yeah. Love you. Peace.